Hi there, my name is Keegan Melbourne, and I'm going to be showing off a procedural building blueprint that I've made in Unreal Engine 4. I've also made the model and textures for this. So to start, we have just our one floor, one row singular mesh, but we can generate ourselves an entirely procedural building by filling out these parameters, and then you can see populates with a big old building. And you can see that there's a color here as well that starts showing up in this kind of gradient fashion. So there's a lot going on here. You got random colors for the mats. You got different offsets of various assets. This flower pot is in a different position than this flower pot. You got air conditioners on certain floors and on not on certain floors. Um, and you got windows that have various uh, rotations and stuff. You got these windows are open, these windows aren't. And other than that, we will go through each parameter that you can change. And so all this kind of stuff is all adjustable, which is cool. Um, where did I put that? Here it is. So this is via the material. So you can change the colors here if we want. So if we want to change this main wall color, we can to something like more of a red, which is great. And so this color variety actually refers to these assets here. So at the max, there's a much more color variety, but if we crank that all the way down, hit apply, give it a second. And so in this menu, you can see that certain assets are still there. They're just masked out. I'll get to how that works. But with the lower color variety, you can see most objects that share the same property kind of have the same colors. Like most of the flowers are yellow, most of these blankets are yellow. Um, and then, but if we change that back to the maximum color variety, get a bit more variation on color to color. You can see there's yellow, blue, white, and all that. So great. And so this grunge high, so you can tell that there's a gradient of the paint color here from the bottom to the top. And this comes from these parameters. So this is kind of a range that you set. So if I up this grunge high value a bit higher, but not above the grunge low, and then click apply, it'll move that grunge a little bit higher. Here I can, and so this grunge strength, you can see right now it's much more splotchy, but if we tone that down, it'll be much more of a linear gradient. And so you can see that this goes up. And so again, if we just crank our grunge high value even more and crunch our grunge strength even lower, it'll be a higher and much more predictable gradient here. And so if we set our grunge low higher, the range will change a little bit to have a bit more of a gradient here rather than just being a sharper cutoff there. So if we readjust these values to what we like, back to, let's say 0.5, click apply, we can get what we want it to look like. And so this allows for a huge level of customization, and whatever as an artist you want to have for your buildings, you can set. And so the next parameter is this hide level. So depending on the floor, you can see certain assets appear, certain assets don't. Um, and so this hide level, depending on its value, so the higher it is, the more objects show up. So if I click apply at the maximum 2 value, everything shows up here, which is great. That's what we want. But if I set it to, let's say 0.4, most of the stuff will not show up. Yeah. So changing that back to 1.2 is kind of a value that I kind of found to be a good kind of middle ground of variation. You can then move on to the position variance and the offset strength. So this kind of just, so the lower this is, or the higher or lower this is, the more that the um, assets. So you can tell, sorry, you can see that the flowers and the air conditioners kind of have a varying position, and so this position variance affects how much or how frequently they'll vary. So if I crank that down, I'll probably crank it down a little bit more to show it off, but um, or I'm sorry, crank it up. That's my bad. So the higher this is, that the less that they will vary. Um, so you can see that they're a little bit more in line in general between these. Um, yeah, you can see that for the most part they're pretty unison. I kind of liked this over at 4, and then the offset strength is just how much or how little you want it. So this, these kind of do similar things, but you can kind of tweak both of them to your liking. So there's really not much offset at the lowest strength, but if we crank it all the way up, uh, this might have certain assets not be positioned the way you want it, but yeah, look at that. You got a ton of variance there. Each floor looks different, has different colors. It's entertains the lizard brain. It doesn't. The, and yeah, and so just the last part is just you got the base color. These are the actual image textures. You got the metal roughness occlusion all in one map, um, and your normal. And so this is all done uh, via vertex colors and world position randomness. So you can see when I adjust this, it'll change. So no matter where you're building this, it's going to look different from building to building because of this world position number values. You can see just there's so much variance um, in everything here based on that. And so the vertex colors, as you can see, so the red represents where that um, paint color is going to be, and then the green is the random colors, and you can see the flower has, say, sort of mix. Sorry, this is not great camera work. The flower has a mix between green and blue because it also has the blue, which uh, determines whether or not it's going to be hidden or has an offset. So that is pretty much it. Yeah, and yeah, so it's a very useful tool, very cool tool, and yeah, thank you.